It's time once again to continue this list, I guess. Continuing on with the 1001 Movies Before You Die, or whatever. It's The Great Train Robbery from 1903. This isn't the first Western, because the first Westerns were actually what you might call non-fiction, or documentaries even. Here's one of the actual Annie Oakley firing a gun at things, which came out in 1894. And it wasn't the first fictional Western either. But it was the first Western made in America. Under Thomas Edison's name, Thomas Edison had a copyright on all film made in America, so no one could make a movie without his written permission, which is one of the reasons narrative film was kind of suppressed in America, because Thomas Edison at first didn't really see the benefit of it or reason for it. Probably wasn't until it started becoming more popular in other countries that he was like, oh, maybe, and I'll start signing off on things like this. But this was the very first Western made in America. It was also a huge hit, very similar to the previous film, A Trip to the Moon. Just in that basically it blew up in popularity and everyone all around the country watched it. And the reason for that, oddly enough, is that it's because it's horrendously violent for its time, which is something I should probably point out, is just that, like, there wasn't such a thing as a ratings board, but people still weren't making, like, excessively violent or grotesque things at the time. So something like this was, like, brand new for all movies, of having something that's basically focusing more on action. Though it's not the first Western, you might call it the first action movie, or at least one of the first. Again, this was a time when things were just brand new. Just like with A Trip to the Moon, it's kind of just the spectacle of the thing that was really drawing audiences to it. It really has nothing to do with the story, really. Oh, speaking of which, I should probably explain the plot. Not that there's much plot. There's even less plot in this one than there was in A Trip to the Moon. Essentially, it begins with a gang robbing a train station. And something that's cool about it is it kind of shows you everything they do to pull off this robbery. It starts with them tying up the guy at the station. Then while the train's refueling with the coal chute, they sneak on board, they stop the train, they make the passengers leave the train so they can rob all the passengers, and then detach the engine and take off, and then stop and go off into the woods where they find their hideout. And then someone unties the person they tied up in the station, like a young lady finds him and cuts him loose. And then that guy, the station master or whatever you call him, he puts together a posse to explore the woods and find this gang, which they do when there's a shootout at the end. And then at the very end, there's the shot that is still famous to this day, sort of a man shooting directly at the screen. And this was largely considered one of the scariest moments in movie history for its time again. Because it's, like I said in the last video, movies were still very new and people were still getting used to the idea. Some people still weren't totally sure. Is this a trick? Is someone just behind the screen? So when somebody just pulls out their gun and shoots directly at the camera, shoots at the audience, as that it might appear to people watching it, is a very scary thing that would make you jump, you know? But watching this nowadays, you might just be like, wait, like, people jumped at this? Really? Your little brother walking up behind you and yelling boo is scarier to people nowadays. What I would say about this movie is that I'd say it's historically significant, and even though it's only 10 minutes long, I probably wouldn't recommend it to most people. So watching it now, I can see why it was really popular for its time. I mean, everything in it was like pretty much brand new. You didn't really see people shooting at each other at the time, or like action sequences of any time. Westerns weren't a thing yet, though there were a couple of Westerns already. They weren't like a super popular genre yet, and like having a movie like this that tells a story that feels like it could have really happened, unlike A Trip to the Moon where everything was basically a fantasy. It's just very different for its time, and it was kind of showing the steps they were taking in movies at the time, you know, like moving towards more narrative-driven films, less about the spectacle. I'd say this was fine. It was a fine 10 minutes, but it doesn't do anything that people haven't done better later. I would say it's basically just a curiosity nowadays, you know? It's not anything that's worthy of going out of your way to find and watch. It is on YouTube though, so, you know, if you want to, you can watch it, but this isn't nearly as good as it once was, I suppose. Anyway, that's it for today. I guess like and subscribe if you like, and I'll see you all next time, because I can see you. And I watch you while you sleep.